I think that basically, we did do an experiment in the paper that just came out where we looked at whether or not the psychedelics seem to be having, a direct effect on addiction-like behaviors using all of the sort of typical neuroscience. I come from an addiction lab, and we looked at, does it change the reward value? That would be the prediction. Like it changes the reward value, drug of abuse no longer addictive, in the sort of classically defined dopamine reward value type of way. And it didn't. The psychedelics had no effect on those things. Instead, what we think is happening, and this is very much in line with the patient narratives, is that it's not changing the reward value of the drug itself. Going back to that prefrontal cortex, part of the mesocortical limbic reward circuit, what we think is that it's changing the narrative a person has, like, and enables them to write a different narrative around the why they're using the drug and what need they're trying to solve or problem they're trying to solve by using the drug. So the epiphanies that people describe are not like suddenly I lost my taste for nicotine, the way that people describe when they take Zyban or, one of these other sort of drug addiction type of typical drugs. Instead, what they're describing is I had an epiphany, and after that epiphany, I realized that, the problem that I was trying to solve doesn't exist anymore. And so, smoking a cigarette to solve that problem seems as foolish as leaving out cookies and hoping that a fat man will come down the chimney and leave me presents, right? It's just a myth I don't believe anymore. And so that cognitive reappraisal, that cognitive flexibility is very much going to be driven by the context that you go into the psychedelic experience with, right? Like if you go into the psychedelic experience, already kind of priming yourself, preparing yourself for these are the set of memories that I want to examine when I'm on this trip, then they become available for modification and become sort of malleable for those kinds of changes.
I mean, one of the things that's interesting here when we sort of step back from the science side of this a little bit, and you talked about things like parallels between drug-induced psychedelic experiences and different forms of sensory deprivation and different religious rituals and things like this. When you think about human beings just compared to other animals generally, human beings are sort of the most context adaptable. We populated the globe. We've had to, more than almost any other creature, go into and out of different contexts all the time. Taking off your hat purely as a scientist for a moment, what do you think about that? What do you think about? Do you think that things like a lot of the ritual practices that often take the form of religions and things like this, do you think that has something to do with sort of humans' adaptability and our ability throughout history to have spread into so many radically different contexts that we've come up with self-imposed behavioral paradigms with or without the assistance of substances that enable us to flip this switch and adapt to radically new environments?
Yeah,